Have you ever wondered how a single man managed to challenge an empire and lead millions to freedom? The mystery of the Exodus is not just an ancient story but a powerful testament to the impact of a determined leader. Picture the scene: a barren desert, a massive army, and an impassable sea. In the midst of it all, one man, armed with faith and courage, begins a journey that would change the course of history. Moses, a simple shepherd, not only led the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery but also faced challenges that seem almost impossible. This story is not just about miracles. It is about inner strength and determination that transcend circumstances. It's about how a leader can transform an oppressed group into a free nation, confronting seemingly insurmountable challenges with unwavering faith. The story of Moses is a profound lesson in leadership, faith, and the ability to turn adversity into opportunity. But what really made Moses such an extraordinary leader? And how do his actions influence the way we face our own challenges today? Get ready to uncover the secrets behind the journey of a man who defied tyranny and led millions to freedom. Moses' transformation from a simple shepherd to the leader of a nation is one of the most fascinating episodes in biblical history. Imagine Moses' life before this calling. Quiet days tending Jethro's flock in the silent hills of Midian. He had distanced himself from the turmoil of Egypt, perhaps seeking peace after years of inner conflict. However, on that specific day, as he led the flock through the desert, he encountered a vision that would change the course of his life forever. A burning bush that was not consumed. There, before that divine manifestation, Moses was called to a mission that would challenge not only his abilities but also his understanding of the world and himself. God, in his wisdom, chose Moses, a humble man, to face the powerful Pharaoh and lead the Israelites' liberation. The burning bush was not just a miracle but a symbol of the calling that burns within each of us, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Initially reluctant and full of doubts, Moses questioned his own ability. Who am I to go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? This was the question that echoed in his mind. It's easy to identify with Moses at this moment, isn't it? How many times have we felt incapable and insecure in the face of a great challenge? Yet, just like Moses, we all have within us the potential to overcome adversity, guided by a greater force that leads us through the darkest moments. The process of accepting the calling was gradual. Moses needed to be convinced by signs and wonders, such as the transformation of his staff into a snake and his hand becoming leprous and then healed. These miracles served to strengthen his faith and prepare him for the monumental task ahead. Similarly, in our journey, we often need signs, moments of clarity or divine intervention, that show us we are on the right path. It is at this point that we see the importance of being attentive to the burning bushes in our lives, those opportunities or challenges that arise to transform us into something greater. Moses' leadership was not limited to mere commands. It was rooted in his deep connection with the divine. His leadership exemplifies how faith can guide decisions and actions, even when circumstances seem impossible to overcome. Moses knew he was not alone. God was with him, guiding every step, every word. And here is a vital lesson for anyone seeking leadership or finding themselves in a position of influence. True leadership is not about power but about serving, about being in tune with something greater than yourself. Like Moses, we are called to lead with humility and faith, trusting that even in difficulties, there is a force guiding our steps. It is interesting to note that before the calling, Moses lived for 40 years in the desert, a period of silent preparation. The desert, often associated with loneliness and hardship, is also a place of growth and strengthening. For many of us, the desert can be a moment of uncertainty in life, when we are waiting for something more significant. However, these moments of apparent stagnation are, in fact, times of preparation, where we are being shaped and prepared to respond to our own calling. Like Moses, we must be ready to leave the desert when the opportunity arises, armed with the wisdom and strength we have gained. When he finally accepted his mission, Moses became not only a leader but a symbol of liberation for the Israelites. He would guide them through seemingly insurmountable situations, with the unwavering faith that he was fulfilling a divine purpose. This transformation from shepherd to leader is a powerful reminder that the great missions in life often come from unexpected places and that even those who consider themselves simple, like shepherds, can be called to great deeds. And so, Moses begins his journey, leaving behind the flock and taking up the staff that now symbolized not just his leadership but God's promise of liberation for his people. And so, he walks toward Egypt, aware that the journey ahead would be full of challenges. But with every step, Moses knew he was not just leading a people but fulfilling a destiny set by divine hands. Moses' calling is a call for all of us to embrace the mission given to us, no matter how daunting it may seem. The next step in this journey would lead Moses to a direct confrontation with Pharaoh, where the plagues of Egypt would reveal God's power and the inescapable destiny of a people. The 10 plagues of Egypt are a sequence of events that highlight not only divine power but also Moses' determination and Pharaoh's obstinate resistance. Each plague was a direct manifestation of divine authority, a stark reminder that the world does not revolve solely according to the will of men but also according to a higher power that demands justice and obedience. The first plague, the transformation of the Nile's waters into blood, was a clear demonstration that the natural resources of Egypt, over which Pharaoh had so much control, were under the influence of something much greater. Water, the source of life and prosperity, became a symbol of Egypt's vulnerability before God. As the plagues unfolded, the situation became increasingly desperate. Frogs, lice, flies, and all other plagues served not only as punishments but as signs for Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Each of these plagues increased the pressure on Pharaoh, showing the deterioration of the natural and social order he had tried to maintain. Pharaoh's inability to deal with these calamities, despite Moses' pleas, evidenced his hardness of heart. He remained firm in his resistance, defying God's power, which inevitably led him to an increasingly darker fate. It is crucial to observe that each plague not only physically impacted Egypt but also challenged the Egyptians' religious and cultural beliefs. Each plague attacked specific aspects of Egyptian worship, demonstrating that the God of Israel was superior to the gods of Egypt. The plague of darkness, for example, was a direct affront to the sun god, Ra, revealing the impotence of the Egyptian deities before the God of Israel. It is a reminder that our beliefs and value systems can be tested and questioned, and that it is through these challenges that we often find a deeper understanding of our own faith and values. The plagues also illustrate a gradual process of intensifying tension, reflecting divine persistence and patience. The fact that the plague started relatively mildly and became progressively more severe shows that God was giving Pharaoh multiple opportunities to change his attitude. Each plague was a chance for Pharaoh to acknowledge God's power and release the Israelites, but his stubbornness led him to an increasingly precarious position. This makes us reflect on our own resistances and how often we fight against necessary changes in our lives, even when the signs are clear and the opportunity to change is offered repeatedly. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, was the culmination of a painful and inevitable process. It brought a devastating impact not only on Egypt but also on the family structure itself, deeply shaking Egyptian society. This dramatic event not only made Pharaoh finally relent but also served as a turning point, a moment of clarity and transformation. It is interesting to note how sometimes in our lives, we need to face great challenges and crises to finally understand and accept the necessary change. The most difficult situations often have the potential to lead us to new understanding and a new beginning. As the plagues reached their climax, the tension was not only felt in Egypt but also in the hearts of the Israelites. Observing divine justice being served was tied to a growing hope, an expectation that liberation was near. The resilience of the Israelites, as they went through this period of waiting and suffering, is a testament to the strength and faith that can sustain us during times of adversity. Just as the Israelites awaited redemption, we too go through periods of waiting and preparation, knowing that despite the difficulties, a new beginning is ahead. The impact of the plagues was profound and far-reaching, affecting both the physical and spiritual spheres. Pharaoh finally relented, allowing the Israelites to leave, but the cost was great, and the path to freedom was just beginning. Moses and the Israelites' journey would continue with new challenges and miracles, and the struggle for freedom and the divine promise was far from over. The experience of the plague serves as a crucial introduction to the epic journey that would follow, marking a decisive moment in Israel's history and demonstrating divine power and justice. The Passover event is a significant milestone in the history of the Israelites and represents the birth of a sacred tradition that endures to this day. The night of Passover, when the Israelites were protected from the final plague, the death of the firstborn, is a remarkable example of how divine intervention can transform the destiny of a people. God instructed Moses to direct the Israelites to mark their doors with the blood of a sacrificed lamb, creating a mark that would serve as a sign of protection. This act was not just a rite of protection but a symbol of a fulfilled promise and the salvation granted by divine power. The Passover ritual is rich in symbolism, reflecting themes of sacrifice, salvation, and divine protection. The lamb, a symbol of innocence and purity, was sacrificed to secure the protection of the Israelites, serving as a reminder that salvation often comes at a cost and requires an act of faith. The meal shared that night, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, became a commemorative rite, a reminder of the haste with which they were to leave Egypt and the bitterness of slavery they were leaving behind. This night became a memorial, a time to remember not only the liberation from slavery but also the covenant with God. As the angel of death passed over the marked houses, sparing the Israelites from the final plague, this moment of divine intervention marked the beginning of the Exodus, the departure from Egypt. The faith shown by the Israelites in marking their doors, despite the fear and uncertainty surrounding them, reflects the kind of faith we are called to have in moments of crisis. Sometimes, it is through acts of faith, even in the most terrifying situations, that we find the strength to move forward and see the fulfillment of God's promises in our lives. The Passover also became a foundational event in Israel's religious identity, forming the basis for one of Judaism's most important festivals. The celebration of Passover is a time for reflection, a time to remember the journey from slavery to freedom, and the role of divine providence in that process. This festival, with its rituals and symbolism, serves as a powerful reminder of the ongoing relationship between God and His people, a covenant that continues to be honored and celebrated by generations of Jews around the world. It is also a time for all of us to remember the liberating power of faith and the importance of celebrating and remembering the moments when we are saved from danger or hardship. The night of the Passover was not just a night of liberation. It was the beginning of a journey. As the Israelites left Egypt, they did not know what lay ahead, but they were united by a common purpose and guided by the belief that they were heading toward a promised land. This moment in the story of Moses is a powerful reminder of the importance of faith, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown. The story of Passover invites us to reflect on our own journeys, to recognize the moments when we, too, have been called to leave behind the familiar and step into the promise of something greater. As Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, the narrative reaches one of its most dramatic and well-known moments, the crossing of the Red Sea. This event, where Moses, with divine assistance, parts the waters of the sea, allowing the Israelites to pass on dry ground while the pursuing Egyptian army is swallowed up by the returning waters, is a defining moment in the Exodus story. This miraculous crossing is a clear demonstration of God's power and the protection He offers to those who follow His guidance. It is also a symbol of the final break from the bonds of slavery, a moment of irreversible change where there is no turning back. The crossing of the Red Sea can be seen as a powerful metaphor for the challenges we face in life. There are moments when we are confronted with seemingly insurmountable obstacles, moments when it feels like there is no way forward. However, with faith and determination, a path can be opened where there seemed to be none. Moses' act of raising his staff and parting the waters is not just a miracle. It is a representation of the power of leadership and faith. It is a moment that invites us to consider how we, too, can find a way through our own challenges by trusting in divine guidance and acting with courage. As the waters returned and the Egyptian army was defeated, the Israelites found themselves truly free for the first time in generations. The victory at the Red Sea was not just a military triumph but a spiritual one. It was the moment when the Israelites' faith was rewarded, and they were assured that they were indeed God's chosen people, protected and guided by Him. This victory was celebrated in song by Moses and Miriam, reflecting the joy and relief of a people who had been delivered from bondage. The crossing of the Red Sea is a moment of collective liberation, a turning point in the history of Israel that would be remembered and retold for generations. This event also highlights the dual nature of God's power, both as a protector and as a force of justice. While the Israelites were saved, the Egyptians, who had oppressed them for so long, faced divine retribution. The crossing of the Red Sea is a reminder of the consequences of hard-heartedness and the refusal to heed divine warnings. It serves as a lesson in humility and the importance of aligning oneself with the will of God. For the Israelites, it was a moment of affirmation that their God was not only a liberator but also a judge who would defend His people against their enemies. The journey through the desert that followed the crossing of the Red Sea was marked by trials and testing, but it was also a time of spiritual growth and the formation of a national identity. The Israelites, now free from slavery, had to learn to live as a free people, governed by divine law and guided by faith. The crossing of the Red Sea was the beginning of this new chapter in their history, a chapter that would include receiving the 10 Commandments, the building of the tabernacle, and the long journey to the Promised Land. Moses, as the leader of this journey, continued to be a mediator between God and the people, guiding them through the desert and helping them understand the laws and commandments that would govern their new life. His leadership was crucial in maintaining the unity and faith of the Israelites during this challenging period. The crossing of the Red Sea and the subsequent journey in the desert is a story of transformation, a people moving from slavery to freedom, from fear to faith, and from being a group of individuals to becoming a nation under God. The story of Moses and the Exodus is a timeless narrative that continues to inspire and teach us about faith, leadership, and the power of divine intervention. It reminds us that no matter how difficult our circumstances may be, there is always a way forward, guided by faith and the courage to act. The journey of the Israelites from Egypt to the Promised Land is a journey that we all undertake in our own lives. A journey from bondage to freedom, from fear to faith, and from despair to hope. And just as Moses led his people to freedom, we too are called to lead and be led, to trust in the divine plan, and to walk forward with courage and faith, knowing that we are never alone on our journey. As you ponder the story of Moses and the Exodus, consider the Red Seas in your life, the moments when you face seemingly insurmountable challenges. Reflect on how faith, leadership, and the courage to act can part the waters, leading you to new beginnings and freedom. The story of Moses is not just an ancient tale. It is a living, breathing example of how faith can guide us through the most difficult times, showing us that with God's help, no obstacle is too great, and no challenge is too daunting. Just as the Israelites crossed the Red Sea and began their journey to the Promised Land, we, too, can find our way through the challenges of life, guided by the light of faith and the strength of our convictions.